Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into a really common experience, that frustrating mix of, unexpected weight gain, feeling tired all the time, and just metabolic shifts that lots of women notice after 40.
Yeah, it really does feel like the goalposts move, doesn't it?
Totally. It's like the rules just change overnight.
And it's that life stage where the health habits that always worked,
Yeah.
they suddenly seem less effective, which understandably leads to a lot of frustration. Feels like you're spinning your wheels.
Absolutely. So for this exploration, we've been digging into excerpts from Transforming Health Over 40, specifically a section called From Sluggish to Slim, Real Stories of Women Over 40 Who Took Back Control. It's got some really compelling real-life stories, and it also talks about a natural metabolic tonic that some of these women found helpful.
Right, and just to be clear, our aim today isn't really to push any specific product. It's more about pulling out the key insights from these women's own experiences.
Exactly. Like, what were the main challenges they were actually facing after 40?
And what kinds of approaches seem to genuinely make a difference for them. We really want to offer you some, valuable perspective to think about for your own health.
Okay, great. So let's start by looking at Catherine's story. She was 47, a teacher, and like so many, she was dealing with exhaustion and this significant weight gain that she couldn't explain.
How much weight are we talking about?
About 28 pounds over maybe 2 years. And this was even though she was pretty consistent with her diet and exercise.
Okay, so that right there tells you something. Catherine was already trying the usual stuff.
Right.
Her story really underscores how the body's internal workings, they can shift around this age. And maybe need a different kind of support than before.
Yeah, exactly. And, like a lot of women, she found her doctor's explanation just hormonal changes. Well, it wasn't very helpful, was it?
No, it often feels like a dead end. Doesn't offer any real steps forward.
Such a common thing we hear, isn't it? So anyway, she then found out about this natural metabolic tonic, one specifically designed for women over 40.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what happened when she started using it?
Well, the results she reported were actually pretty noticeable. She said she felt more energetic within about 3 weeks.
Wow, that's quite quick for energy.
Yeah. And then by the second month, her clothes were fitting better. And get this, by the 6-month mark, she'd lost 22 pounds and felt like she had her old energy levels back.
So what's really important there, I think,
Yeah.
is that Catherine's big takeaway wasn't just the weight loss itself.
Yeah.
It was more about feeling like she was addressing the root cause.
Right. She felt it was about this metabolic slowdown, not just needing some generic diet plan.
That's a really key distinction.
Yeah.
It suggests that for some women over 40, maybe the focus needs to shift a bit, not just cutting calories, but actively supporting, how their body actually processes energy.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, next up we have Monica. She was 52, an accountant. Her main issue was that really stubborn belly fat that seemed to creep up after menopause.
Ah, yes, the postmenopausal midsection changes. Very common.
And on top of that, she was also dealing with rising blood sugar levels, actually got a prediabetes diagnosis.
Okay, so that adds another layer of concern. That visceral fat, the fat around the organs, especially after menopause, it's linked to hormonal shifts and definitely increases health risks. So her doctor's concern makes total sense.
Right. So Monica also started using the metabolic tonic, but what's interesting is the source says she combined it with modest lifestyle adjustments.
So not a complete overhaul.
Exactly. It wasn't about drastic changes for her.
Did she notice anything specific early on?
Yeah, apparently the first big change wasn't weight loss. It was that her cravings diminished quite a bit.
That's interesting. So maybe an effect on appetite regulation. That could be a huge hurdle for lots of people.
Totally. So over about 4 months, she lost 17 pounds, mostly from her middle section, and her glucose levels improved too.
That's fantastic, both the weight loss location and the glucose improvement.
Yeah, and apparently her doctor was actually surprised by her progress and asked her what she was doing differently.
Okay, see, that really highlights how targeted approaches can sometimes impact specific health markers, maybe beyond what standard advice achieves.
Right.
The fact that her doctor was surprised suggests Monica found something that went a bit beyond the usual recommendations. The key lesson from her story seems to be that tackling those hormonal imbalances seemed really effective for that specific belly fat, perhaps more than just exercise had been on its own.
Good point. Okay, let's move on to Jennifer. 45, marketing executive. She had sort of a double whammy, weight gain 34 pounds in about 18 months, and this persistent brain fog.
Oh, the brain fog. That's tough, especially in a demanding job.
Yeah, it was actually affecting her work performance, even though she felt she was eating healthily.
Jennifer's situation really shines a light on that connection between our metabolic health and how sharp we feel mentally, doesn't it?
It really does.
It's not unusual for women in this age bracket to report issues with focus or memory. Her worry about that link is completely understandable.
So she also used the metabolic tonic. And she noted it had ingredients known to potentially help both metabolism and cognitive function.
Okay, so targeting both. And what were her results?
Pretty significant. She reported better concentration within the first month.
A month. Oh,
Yeah. And by month 2, she felt her mental clarity was back. Plus, she lost 26 pounds after about 5 months.
What's really interesting there is the timing. The cognitive improvements seem to show up before the major weight loss kicked in.
Ah, good catch.
It suggests maybe some ingredients had a more direct effect on, brain function or perhaps inflammation related to it. So the big takeaway from Jennifer is really underscoring that linked metabolic health and cognitive sharpness are often intertwined.
Absolutely. Okay, now let's talk about Diane. She was 58. Her story describes this really frustrating cycle.
Uh-oh, what kind of cycle?
Poor sleep leading to exhaustion. Then the exhaustion led to comfort eating and less activity,
Ah, I see where this is going.
which led to more weight gain. 32 pounds over about 3 years for her. And it was really dragging down her quality of life.
Well, that's such a common pattern, especially around perimenopause and menopause.
Yeah.
Bad sleep just throws everything off, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Energy, appetite hormones, weight. Her feeling about quality of life, yeah, many women can relate to that.
So her sister actually recommended the metabolic tonic to her, having had a good experience herself.
Okay, a personal recommendation.
And for Diane, the first thing she noticed improving was her sleep quality. And that was within just 2 weeks.
Wow, just 2 weeks for sleep. That's huge.
Isn't it?
Because better sleep can be the key that unlocks everything else. You can create this positive ripple effect, more energy, maybe fewer cravings.
Exactly. And that's what happened. With better sleep, she had more energy, her sugar cravings went down, and she ended up losing 29 pounds over about 7 months.
Nice.
So the main point from Diane's story really seems to be how a targeted approach might help break those interconnected kind of negative feedback loops that can pop up with aging.
Right, it's about getting at the underlying imbalances that are fueling all these different symptoms, instead of just chasing each symptom separately.
Well put. Okay, lastly, let's look at Sarah's transformation. She was 49, a nurse, so, she already had a good grasp of standard health advice.
Right, so she wasn't coming from a place of not knowing the basics.
Exactly, but she still experienced this gradual weight gain, went from a size 8 up to a size 16 over about 5 years.
Wow, that's significant. And being a nurse, her experience is really interesting. She knew about healthy habits, but her body just wasn't responding like it used to.
Yeah.
It really points towards that idea of maybe metabolic resistance that can develop as we get older.
So despite being, understandably, a bit skeptical,
I bet.
she decided to try the metabolic tonic after a patient actually recommended it. But, and this is important, she combined it with moderate exercise and some dietary adjustments.
Okay, so it was part of a combined approach for her.
Yes. And her results were pretty striking. She dropped 2 dress sizes in about 3 months and eventually got back to her original size 8 after 8 months. That was a 42-pound loss in total.
That's incredible.
And wait, there's more. She also mentioned other benefits like less joint pain and her acid reflux resolved.
Bonus benefits, always nice.
Right. So the key takeaway from Sarah's story is pretty powerful. It seems the tonic helped address some kind of underlying metabolic resistance that her existing health knowledge alone couldn't overcome.
Yeah, it suggests that sometimes, even when we know what to do, our bodies might just need some extra specific support to get things working properly again.
Makes sense. Now, the source material also gets into what it calls the science behind the success.
Okay, let's hear it.
It mentions hormonal rebalancing using things called adaptogenic herbs. These are supposed to help manage cortisol levels and support women through perimenopause and menopause.
Right, adaptogens. They're quite fascinating. The idea is they help the body kind of adapt to stress.
Okay, so how does that relate here?
Well, the source suggests these herbs might play a role in helping nudge hormone levels back towards a healthier balance. Imbalanced hormones, as we know, can have a big impact on metabolism and weight.
Gotcha. The source also talks about metabolic activation, using specific ingredients to counteract that natural age-related slowdown in our metabolic rate we've been talking about.
And that's a huge challenge for many women over 40, that metabolic dip. So ingredients that could potentially support or reactivate those processes could really make a difference in how the body burns energy.
Another point they bring up is reducing inflammation. Apparently, the tonic has anti-inflammatory components.
Which makes sense.
Oh,
There's growing evidence linking chronic low-grade inflammation to weight gain and metabolic problems. So tackling inflammation could offer broader benefits.
improved sleep quality is mentioned again, which really echoes Diane's experience. Good sleep is just foundational, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It impacts everything: hormones, appetite, energy, mood. If you improve sleep, you often set off a positive chain reaction.
And finally, they mention natural energy enhancement, supporting the body's own energy production at the cellular level, but without using stimulants.
Right, so avoiding those caffeine jitters and crashes. Supporting the body's inherent ability to make energy could lead to more steady, sustained energy all day.
Okay, but the source also stresses something important. It highlights common approaches used by the women who got good results. It wasn't just about taking the tonic.
That's a really crucial point. These stories don't present it as some magic bullet.
Right.
The women who saw success generally showed patience. They seemed to understand that real, sustainable change after 40 can take time.
Consistency was another big one, using the tonic daily as recommended. Which makes sense, right? You need consistency for almost any health strategy to work.
Totally. And they also seem to have realistic expectations. They valued those non-scale victories. More energy, better sleep, improved mood, not just obsessing over the number on the scale.
Good point. And lastly, they all seem to take a holistic approach, combining the tonic with, manageable diet tweaks and getting some activity in.
Not extreme measures.
No, just sustainable lifestyle adjustments.
Which really reinforces that idea, doesn't it? The tonic, in these accounts, was more like one piece of a bigger puzzle, part of a broader strategy for improving overall well-being, not some standalone fix.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into these stories, what really stands out is that these metabolic shifts women face after 40, they're real. And they can lead to that frustrating weight gain and fatigue.
Good.
But these accounts suggest that targeted approaches, ones focusing on things like hormonal balance, activating metabolism, cutting down inflammation, improving sleep, boosting natural energy, these can be really valuable.
And it's crucial to remember these are individual stories. However, those common themes, they do point towards the potential benefit of combining that kind of specific support with those lifestyle basics.
Right, like being patient,
Being consistent,
having realistic expectations, looking beyond just weight.
and taking that holistic view: diet, activity, the whole picture.
So here's maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. How might really understanding the specific metabolic hurdles of this life stage and knowing there could be targeted support available change how you think about your own health journey?
Yeah, maybe it empowers you to look beyond just the generic advice we all hear.
Exactly. Because the experiences we've talked about today, they really suggest that working with your body's changes rather than feeling like you're constantly fighting them could actually lead to some significant improvements in an energy, weight, and just your overall sense of well-being.